Today's lesson is on adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing decimals. First, we'll look at adding decimals. So for number 1, we have 2 and 900ths plus 6 and 927 thousandths. When we add decimals, we need to line up our decimal. So for number 1, we'll have 2.09 plus 6.927. Notice that my decimals are lined up. Above the 7, I do not have a number, so to hold that place, I'm going to put a 0. Now I can go ahead and add. 0 plus 7 is 7. 9 plus 2 is 11. Carry my 1. 1 plus 0 is 1, plus 9 is 10. Carry my 1. And 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 6 is 9. Now for my answer, I need to bring my decimal straight down. So I get 9.017, or 9 17 thousandths. For number 2, I have 46 plus 15 34 hundredths. 46 is a whole number, so we do not have to write a decimal with it. When we are adding our decimals, we need to put a decimal in so we make sure that we line them up. A decimal and a whole number is at the end. So I have 46, and then my decimal would be at the end. This will help us get the second number lined up. So then I have plus 15.34. I do not have anything above the 3 and the 4, so I'm going to add in my zeros. Notice our decimals are now lined up. So 0 plus 4 is 4. 0 plus 3 is 3. 6 plus 5 is 11. 1 plus 4 is 5. Plus 1 is 6. And now I bring my decimal straight down in my answer. So I have 61.34, which is 61 34 hundredths. Now I'm going to look at subtracting decimals. So for number 3, I have 16 4 hundredths minus 9 223 thousandths. My rule is the same as adding decimals. I need to line up my decimal before I subtract. So I'm going to have 16.04 minus 9.223. I do not have a digit above the 3, so I'm going to put in my 0. And now I'm going to go ahead and subtract. 0 minus 3 I cannot do, so I will borrow from the 4 and make it a 3. And now my 0 is a 10. 10 minus 3 is 7. 3 minus 2 is 1. 0 minus 2 I cannot do, so I will borrow from the 6 and make that a 5. And now my 0 is a 10. So 10 minus 2 is 8. And then 5 minus 9 I cannot do, so I'll borrow from my 1, make it a 0. And now my 5 becomes a 15. So 15 minus 9 is 6. In my answer, my decimal is going to come straight down. So I have 6.817, or 6 817 thousandths. For number 4, I have 95 minus 16 73 hundredths. 95 is a whole number. It does not have a decimal written with it, so we add a decimal in. A decimal and a whole number is at the end. So I have 95, and then I'll go ahead and put my decimal at the end, and then minus 16.73. Notice my decimals are lined up. I do not have any digits above 7 and 3, so I'll put zeros. Now I can subtract. I cannot subtract 3 from 0, so I'm going to borrow. I have nothing to borrow from the 0 next to it, so I have to go all the way over to the 5. The 5 now becomes a 4. This 0 becomes a 10, but I need to borrow 1 from it, so now it's going to become a 9, so the last 0 then can become a 10. So 10 minus 3 is 7. 9 minus 7 is 2. 4 minus 6 I cannot do, so I will borrow from the 9. It becomes an 8. And now this 4 is a 14. 14 minus 6 is 8. And 8 minus 1 is 7. In my answer, my decimal comes straight down. So I have 78.27, or 78 and 27 hundredths. Now I'm going to look at multiplying decimals. When I multiply decimals, I do not have to line up my decimal before I multiply. So I'm going to just line up my digits at the end of each number. So for number 5, I have 14.3 times 7.2, or 14 and 3/10 times 7 and 2/10. Sometimes you'll notice the decimals end up being lined up, but they do not have to be. Now I'm going to go ahead and multiply. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 4 is 8. And 2 times 1 is 2. For my second row, I need to start with my 0. And then 7 times 3 is 21. 7 times 4 is 28, plus 2 is 30. And 7 times 1 is 7, plus 3 is 10. Now I will add up my numbers. 6 plus 0 is 6. 8 plus 1 is 9. 2 plus 0 is 2. And then I have nothing to add to my 0, so it stays 0. And nothing to add to my 1, so it still stays a 1. Now for my decimal, I have one number after the decimal for my first number I had, and 1 after the decimal for the second number I had. So I have 1 decimal place here and 1 decimal place here for a total of 2 decimal places. So I move over 2 places from the end. 1, 2. So I have 102.96, or 102 and 96 hundredths. For number 6, I have 0 and 45 thousandths times 7/10. Remember, you do not have to line up your decimals. So we have 0.045 times 0.7. I'm going to make sure my numbers are lined up at the end. Now I'm going to go ahead and multiply. 7 times 5 is 35. 7 times 4 is 28, plus 3 is 31. 7 times 0 is 0, plus 3 is 3. And 7 times 0 is 0. Okay, now you'll notice that my next number I'll be working with is a 0. So if we would do our next row, we'd start with a 0, and then we'd have 0 for all these digits. So we can actually just skip that step. So now we are ready to put our decimal in our answer. So for the first number, we have 1, 2, 3 numbers after our decimal. And for the second one, we have 1 number after our decimal. So here we had 3, and then plus the 1 we had in our second number, for a total of 4 decimal places. So from the end, I'll go over 4 places. 1, 2, 3, 4. So my answer is going to be 0.0315, which is 0 and 315 10,000ths. Now I'm going to be dividing decimals. So for number 7, I have 4 and 17 hundredths divided by 3/10. So I'm going to go ahead and set this up, and I have 4.17 divided by 0.3. I need to make sure that this number is a whole number. So I need to move my decimal over 1 place to make it a whole number. Now it's going to be a 3. I also need to then move my decimal on 4 and 17 hundredths over 1 place as well. So I have 41.7. The decimal in our answer will go straight above, so I'll go ahead and put that in now. Now I can go ahead and divide. 3 goes into 4 one time. 1 times 3 is 3. Going to subtract and I get 1. Now I'm going to bring down my 1. And 3 goes into 11 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. I will subtract, and 11 minus 9 is 2. And now I bring down my 7. 3 goes into 27 9 times. So I have 9 times 3 is 27. I subtract and get 0, so I am finished with my problem. So my answer is 13.9, or 13 9/10. And now we'll look at number 8. I have 54 divided by 9/100. So now I'm going to write my problem out. So 54 divided by 0.09. I need to make 9/100 a whole number, so I move my decimal over 2 places. 1, 2. And also then I need to move my decimal with 54. 54 does not have a decimal with it. If I wanted to write one in, it would be at the end. So it would be right here. And now I need to move it 2 places. 1, 2. In these spaces, I'm going to write in zeros. My decimal and my answer will go straight above, so it's right here in my answer. Now I can go ahead and divide. 9 cannot go into 5, so I'm going to divide 9 into 54. 9 goes into 54 6 times, and 6 times 9 is 54. I subtract and I get 0. I have numbers to bring down, so I'm going to bring down my 0. 9 goes into 0 0 times. 0 times 9 is 0. I subtract, I get 0. And I still have one more number to bring down. I bring down my 0. And 9 goes into 0 0 times. 0 times 9 is 0. I subtract and I have 0. So my answer is 600.